Hi there, this is Tian Li from Straits Interactive and the Data Protection Excellence Network. With us here today for this interview with a cyber insurance broker is Andrew Lai. Andrew, for those of our DPEX members who may not know you, could you tell us more about yourself? What do you do?
Hi everyone, I'm an insurance broker. I mainly focus on cyber insurance for both small SMEs, startups, fintechs, financial institutions, and large logistics companies. Help them to get the cyber insurance cover, structure it to their needs, and when the claim comes, I'm always the guy down there trying to make sure the claims can be paid and everything is going smoothly along the process. Yeah.
Wow, Andrew, so you're the most important person that we always have to go to if, touch wood, that there's a cyber incident. Now, to start this whole session, let us just quickly touch on two cases that's happened recently or in the past few years. First, let's look at the Marriott case, whereby in 2014, an unknown group was able to plant a Trojan into Starwood's reservation systems. Now, together with another software that allowed them to match the usernames and the passwords, this group of hackers were able to gain access without any authorization to millions, or rather should I say hundreds of millions of accounts. Now in 2016, Marriott announced that they have acquired Starwood. And in 2018, we all know of the Marriott data breach, which has impacted over 500 million personal records. Now, one question that's probably on your mind is, between 2016 and 2018, why didn't Marriott migrate these customers from Starwood's reservation systems to their own reservation system? Now, one of the reasons we came to realize in the reports is that Marriott, during this acquisition, had laid off most of the senior executives of Starwood, and that included the folks who were taking care of the IT of the reservation system. So for 2 years, nothing was done about the IT reservations, the reservation system, and as a result, all right, this was left unpatched, untreated, and this is what you came to know as the Marriott data breach, whereby Marriott faced a fine of £99 million. It also faced a class action suit and definitely a loss of reputation, which could translate to a loss of business, and above all, a loss in productivity. Just imagine the amount of time that he had to spend to handle this investigation. Now, something else that's probably fresh on our minds is the Colonial Pipeline case. Okay, more to come on this, but one really important point that is from this CNA video, I'm just going to show you very quickly.
Time and time again, to hospitals that are using Internet Explorer 1995, to gas companies that are still, using, AOL logins. I mean, we need to upgrade our web connectivity immensely, and the government's going to have to help do that.
So if you heard that correctly, yes, they were still using outdated browsers and potentially even OS that were outdated and no longer supported by the developers. So we see in these two cases, and they are not the only ones, that data breaches are on the rise and cyber attacks are one of the factors. So Andrew, as someone so closely associated with this sector, what are some of your thoughts on this Marriott case as well as the Colonial Pipeline case?
Marriott, hi Chen Li. Marriott case was a very interesting case because it was one of the times in the earlier years of cyber insurance where you see a total loss, where the entire insurance policy was apparently fully used up to pay both the fines, the investigation costs, the lawsuits, and the forensics. For the Colonial Pipeline case, it highlighted a very interesting part of cyber insurance, where you can actually cover a voluntary shutdown of your whole network, even though the network that was affected was a separate network from the one when the one you're shutting down. So to highlight to people listening, it was apparently reported that in the Colonial Pipeline case, the network that got ransomware was actually the email servers. But just as a precaution, the forensics experts advised that you shut down everything because you do not know for sure whether the hackers actually hacked into the control systems of the pipeline itself. And there's insurance cover to cover when you need to do this. So even as a precaution and all the lost business and extra expense that you incur when you do it. Yeah.
Wow, that was a very, very important point, Andrew, that when it's affected, it's not just one system. And, it's really great to hear that cyber insurance can support you, all right, as you're looking to strengthen your systems, in a broader sense. Now, I've observed this recently as well. I'd like to ask you, Andrew, why are cyber insurance premiums on the rise? Is it because of the increase in cyber attacks?
Yes, definitely. But it's not just cyber attacks, it's also ransomware claims. Majority of the claims that insurers have been paying last year is actually ransomware, both across small SMEs to large organizations. There's been ransomware all across the place. And that has been affecting the premiums going up. That's the main reason. On the side, I think last year, PDPC actually increased the maximum fine on PDPA, and insurers also factoring that into account and for increased premiums. Lastly, is that most of the cyber insurers in Singapore are actually reinsuring their premiums to global cyber insurers. And because there's been claims across globally in the US and Europe, that has affected the premiums that these Singapore insurers must charge. And that's why even though you may say that I'm a small SME, I never claimed before, why is my premiums going up so much? It's because of ransomware claims across the entire sector in Singapore, increased fines in PDPA from PDPC, and also because of the reduced capacity from reinsurers abroad. Yeah.
So Andrew, that just sounds like there's pressure from local, from international, from regulations, and these are all very holistic. I'll say it's a very holistic push of the prices. And may I also say that then we could probably expect that these premiums will continue to be corrected as we are moving along.
For this year, at least, I'm quite confident that at least you can especially see this in all the SME plans in Singapore. Everyone has increased their premiums by 10 to 30% higher, and in some cases even reduced the coverage available. Next year would be interesting to see whether the market will start to stabilize, or it will start to the insurance term is hardened, or premiums will still harden. It is uncertain right now, but everyone is watching very carefully, right? All the brokers and insurers are watching very carefully. I think the key indicator of whether premiums will go up next year would be if there's still a lot more breaches and massive breaches reported this year. So far, there have not been, in the last 1 month, 2 months, there hasn't been any big local breaches that have come to mind yet, or at least announced yet, right? You never know whether privately there already has been a breach. But there'll be a clear indicator of whether the premiums next year will also keep going higher. Yeah.
I think, Andrew, you just make a fantastic point. Now, all these factors that you mentioned, more companies claiming, the international happenings, what's happening out there, and definitely, as you mentioned, right, the recent amendments to the PDPA, first of all, those who have gone live since February this year, and we're expecting more to come as well, maybe later this year or even next year. All this actually risk factors. So from that aspect, how do you assess the risk profile of clients? Because I'm sure for an insurance broker and for an insurance company, you'll be looking very, very seriously at the risks of your clients.
Yes, correct. One noticeable change for me is my job actually gotten a bit harder this year. Last year, all you needed to do was just fill in a form, submit to the insurer, 3 quotes, very cheap, just fight, and go for the lowest, right? But this year, during the insurance renewal process, insurers are now asking actual proper information. They want to know, like, for example, how much, what kind of personal information are you processing? What's the amount of personal information? Even for SME clients, some of the SME insurers or cyber insurance are now asking this kind of stuff. If you are a high-risk sector, for example, you're dealing with financial information, you're dealing with healthcare information, they want to know whether you are doing and you have a process to keep doing regular penetration testing. If you don't have this, a lot of the insurers wouldn't even bother talking about the case any further. Automatic decline, right? They want to know whether you have regular cyber audits and what is the summary of these audits. Especially for large institutions, if you cannot show that you're doing regular cyber audits, and the proof will be, can you show me the summary of these audits? They also will straight away decline to cover you. I think very important to them is also whether do you have a disaster recovery plan. The industry slang is disaster recovery or business continuity plan for a cyber breach. And how do you know whether you have it or not is, can you show them the plan? If you cannot show because it's confidential, then can you tell me what's your response time when you have a cyber breach? You annually test your response to these plans and your compliance to these plans. It's very key because what we have realized as brokers and insurers is that when you have a cyber breach, the first 24 to 48 hours is critical, right? And how do you know whether you can respond well in the first 24 to 48 hours is that, can you actually follow your plan? Do you even have a plan to know what to do in the first 24 to 48 hours? If you can show this, insurers are more comfortable to insure you and make the premiums and access more aligned to your interest than a higher access and premium. Lastly, and very critical, especially for ransomware, is do you actually back up? Can you show that you back up your data offsite? So you cannot say that I have all my data on Google Drive and I back up on Google Drive. It has to be on Dropbox or offline, right? And you do the backups regularly. And especially if you're sensitive data, you actually encrypt those backups. So you back up, it's offsite separate, and it's encrypted. These are the 3 tiers that if you can tell insurer I do, you are definitely a safer client to insure, premiums start to go down. What I think is also very helpful that insurers may not ask, but you can give holistically, they will keep into consideration is, are you certified? Are you Data Trust Mark certified? Do you have ISO certification? You know, these are the things that insurers tell that for insurers, it's a very holistic sign that you take it seriously, you are spending the money, and you are actually have a proper process and proper benchmarks that the insurer can tell. The underwriter can tell to their bosses, don't worry, this guy is Trust Mark certified, this guy is this in place. It's not normal, and the guy has actually done it, and that helps the insurer to feel comfortable to insure you for a good price. Yeah.
Wow, Andrew, I think that there's just so much jam and value in your words. You know, if I were to distill and to identify some of the key points from what you just shared, these are actually principles of accountability, and these are central, you know, regardless of whether it's for data protection, for information security, for governance, for risk, for compliance. That is a lot about accountability, doing what you say you're going to do and being able to prove it with evidence. Yeah, especially for those that you're not going to do as well, that you're actually not doing them. I think this is a very good lesson. And that is, as you mentioned, very well exemplified if you have a certification, which I can share with you as a data protection practitioner. It's not easy.
Yes, correct. Insurers know that it's not easy to get this kind of like certification in place, and having it is a very good sign. If you may not be able to obtain it, I think what's most critical for the insurer is that you're able to explain why you don't have it, what you have in place of it, and be able to explain in detail what your processes are like. That's a clear sign that you know what you're doing. Yeah.
Right, knowing what you're doing, key point. Yeah. So good. So what I hear right now is that we're looking for a higher level of maturity in your data protection as well as your cybersecurity, your information security program. Because as we know, cybersecurity is one part of the protection obligation under the PDPA. Now, one question I do have, and I believe many of our DPEX network members may be asking, is that for all this effort I'm going to put in, what am I getting in return? So Andrew, can you tell us, can you share with us, what does a typical cyber insurance package cover?
I like to say it covers mainly 3 things. The first thing that everyone wants to know, and insurance definitely will cover, is a breach of privacy and regulatory investigation that will occur. And it's not just Singapore breach of PDPA, it will definitely enable to cover like a breach of GDPR, Hong Kong privacy law, or even Australia privacy law. They have no issue covering this stuff. And that's what the first pillar of a cyber insurance policy is meant to cover. The second pillar is, besides regulatory costs, is also what I call your direct loss. This is your lost profit and extra expense. When you have a ransomware attack, your network is shut down, there's a DOS attack, you lose money, and you also incur extra costs to yourself, and the insurer is prepared to cover for these kind of costs and under a cyber insurance plan. When you hear horror stories of 50 million, 100 million in losses, most of that loss is not about the response, it's actually the lost business and the extra expense. And that's where the cyber insurance will really pay for itself. Thirdly is lawsuits. What insurers have realized sometimes happens is that cyber hackers will hack into your network and through your network affect other networks. And then those clients will sue you straight away because the cyber attack came from your system. The insurers are prepared to pay for that in the lawsuit aspect. This is actually very important. So although you may not have a lot of retail data, if you are a vendor to like a big corporate MNC in Singapore, SOE in Singapore, if their network gets hacked because of you, the lawsuit is definitely coming. And that's what the cyber insurance is going to pay for. Yeah.
Well, it does sound like cyber insurance covers quite a lot, if I could say, if not all the critical pillars Yeah, for consideration, should a data breach happen. Now, I know there's been many cases around the world. Now, to bring something closer to home, do you have an example of a local Singapore company that has benefited from getting a cyber insurance program?
Yes, actually, last year, a client came to mind. They were actually a startup running a platform service for their customers. At 11 p.m. at night, one of the customers complained to the founder that they couldn't access the platform. They do the usual internal checks at midnight, discovered that a hacker actually hacked into their website, deleted the entire website off the server. And it wasn't even a ransomware. I think the hacker just did it for fun. They contacted me at 1 a.m. and by 2 a.m. we actually got on a phone call with this cyber insurance forensics partners to start the entire investigation process. We managed to work through the weekend, and by Monday morning, the website was back online. What the insurance provider provided besides just the investigation cost was also, I think more importantly to the client, was to help them do a full and proper audit of all the systems after that. Did the hacker went deeper than that? Did they actually install any malware? Did they actually access any sensitive client data? And they were through the investigation, they found out that they probably suspected in a high level of certainty that the hacker didn't do that. And they also provided, therefore, I think in essence, not just about the recovery, but also a proper investigation and the confidence that if, let's say, the investigation screwed up and actually the hacker did pull out data, the insurer now has to pay for the further costs and any further like ransomware costs or any further breach of PDPA that happened 3 to 4 years down the road from this breach. So it gives the client, I think, the peace of mind knowing that any cost of this incident is now isolated and contained. Yeah.
Wow, Andrew, this just blew me away because, for most of us out there, we may just be thinking that cyber insurance helps to take care, or if something goes wrong, it helps to cushion the impact. What I'm hearing now from you is that cyber insurance gives you the option to increase your resilience. And that's fantastic. I think it's really forward-looking.
Yes. By the end of the whole investigation audit, the cyber insurer and partner actually gave recommendations to the client, telling them what they noticed in their peers and competitors about what's the better antivirus or firewalls to use or network penetration scans to use to prevent this from happening again. They were also happy to also budget under the coverage some amount to basically improve the system so that it doesn't happen again. Yeah.
Also, Andrew, after hearing all these benefits that this company received, from getting a cyber insurance package, I'm going to ask a question that's a little difficult. Now, what if the company did not get cyber insurance? What kinds of costs are we looking at?
So it was just an investigation alone. The general cost from the many IT vendors in Singapore, right? But the good ones who know what they're doing, they're charging right now. The starting fee is probably around 5,000. But the actual cost is more like 10,000 by the end of the investigation. I have seen 20, 30,000 for investigation costs. And this is for costs without reporting to PDPA, which means you just investigate, finish, and then you realize there's no potential breach of PDPA, but you need to do the investigation anyway, right? Just to have the peace of mind or safety is around 5 to 30,000. However, if you breach PDPA, the actual cost is around 250K. Insurers will straight away allocate of funds 250,000 to the investigation. That's the average cost. It has gone up as high as 750K or higher in Singapore right now. Yeah, this is the cost of the legal and defense cost, not the cost of the fines. So you add on the fines on top of it, and that will be the full cost. Yeah.
That's a really, really good point, Andrew, because sometimes we are so attracted by the maximum fine under the PDPA, which is $1 million or up to, I believe, 10% of the annual turnover. Yeah, so when we are so attracted by that, we tend to just, maybe miss out on the other costs, like those that you have mentioned. Okay, I think that's really important. So, after learning about all this from you, Andrew, what advice would you offer to a company that's looking to apply for cyber insurance? Because I think we have heard enough that we know cyber insurance helps us. It's our friend. Yeah, it helps us today. It helps us tomorrow. It helps us for a much longer time to improve our posture. Now, in my practice, I'm a data protection practitioner. You know that. So I meet a lot of data protection officers and even the board of directors. They're always looking at what are the data protection measures that they want to put in place? What are some initiatives they want to run to improve their overall program. So for this group of people, yeah, especially those who are in the DPACS network, what advice would you offer to them when they're looking out for a cyber insurance package?
You need to prepare to show to the broker and the insurer a possible narrative that you actually have good cyber culture and processes, which means that you actually have you can show that I have a data privacy program in place. And you don't just tick the box, you can show proof of it. You can show the results that you actually do spend money on doing regular penetration testing every quarter or every year. And you can show the insurer and the broker that these are the results and the scan results. This will help a lot to show to the insurer that you actually know what you're doing. I think what's also very useful is that you're able to show some way of, and insurers are not rigid, they're open to other ways, but you need to show ultimately that you do have a proper culture in place, culture and processes. That helps a lot for the insurer to say, okay, even though you are in a high risk area, like you're handling healthcare records, I will still be able to insure you at a decent price and decent access. Yeah.
So Andrew, you're talking about accountability, and I think we cannot stress enough about how important it is to be able to demonstrate your upright posture. Yeah, be it for data protection, be it for information security. Okay, so that's a really important message we want to emphasize here. And just getting some insights from that sentence alone. So depending on your level of accountability, of readiness, then you may even expect varying levels of premiums. Yes. So yes, with that in mind, I think we all need to speak. I think we only have just 20-30 minutes of your time today, and we really like to thank you for that. But I also like to share the good news with all our DPACS network members. So we know today that it can be such a complex matter, and it can be so beneficial to your organization. So we have got Andrew, who is so kind and generous, right? He's willing to have a complimentary chat with you to understand more about your data protection and your security, okay, readiness level. Anything to add to that, to share with us, Andrew? Why don't you tell us more?
Sure. I think what a good broker provides is not just cheap quotes, but also good advice. I think it's important before you even apply for the plan, you sit down and have a chit chat about what do you want the insurance to cover? How can we write a story to the insurers that you actually know what you're doing? And so we can make sure when you start engaging with the insurers to get quotes, they understand your position correctly, and therefore they'll give you the best deal they can give.
All right, thank you very much, Andrew. So if you want to get the right quote, yeah, don't underquote yourself, don't overquote yourself. If you want to get the right quote, reach out to Andrew, have a chat with him. Now for our DPACS Network members, you probably have already used the diagnostic tool on the DPACS Network website. All right, that's going to give you some ideas of the next step you can do. And if you like to discuss in detail, especially if you're working towards a certification like the Data Protection Trust Mark, then you may want to talk to a certified data protection consultant. You can write into sales@straitsinteractive.com. All right, with that, thank you very much. Have a great day ahead. Andrew, we hope to have you here more often in future as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Shenli. See you again sometime.
Thank you. Take care.
For more data protection resources, visit www.dpacsnetwork.org, the Data Protection Excellence Network, and sign up for free as a member to have full access to all content. Do also like and follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn if you found this useful.